All right, all right, all right. Good evening, everyone. How are you doing? Glad to be here this evening with you all.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
as everyone is winding down from voting, you see Miss Tracee has on her voting sticker, and here is mine. We were just discussing that before we joined you all live, but we just want to thank all who voted, and I know our seniors went out and voted early. So just it's a good thing to vote, right? But
Excellent.
excellent thing to vote. Yes, it
Yes.
matters. So we're glad to have you on. We have some individuals already joining us. I can't see who joins us because we're on a different platform. But we'll be able to see afterwards, after the live, and then if you have any comments or you know any comments or questions or anything like that, we're able to go back in the live on Facebook and answer those questions. And okay, but we're going to get started. Let's talk senior care tonight. We have our special guest, Miss Tracee. She's a community relations director. And once
Yes.
again, you know, I roll with the best, a wealth of knowledge, years of experience within the senior care industry. And as you know, I'm Rebekah, the founder of this group of local business owners, community organizations, and healthcare providers coming all together to network and also be able to find resources locally within your community, serving, you know, Atlanta, Georgia, West Georgia. I serve multiple counties, Atlanta and Cobb, Carroll. So I serve multiple counties, and I know a lot of you in this group service multiple counties as well. And what I've come to realize is it's those small business owners, it's those local community organizations that have elderly loved ones that they are now having to make decisions for. So they need the resources and the education as well. And that's what we're coming here to do this evening on the Let's Talk Senior Care tonight. So let's get into it. We're going to talk about senior living tonight. And again, I'm going to let Tracee introduce herself and share a little bit about her and what she does. Tracee?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Rebecca. This is a great opportunity, and I appreciate you inviting me to be on tonight to talk senior care. As you say, let's talk about it. In terms of myself, I've been in senior living probably since about 2017, 2018 now. And ultimately, it's my job to help people. That's what I do. I assist families in their time of need when they're looking for placement for their loved ones, and really try to educate them and make sure that they understand the process, that I'm helping them get through their journey. Hopefully, a successful journey it will be when they take that next step into senior living. But that's pretty much what my role is. I market the community. I make sure people are aware of options that are available to them. So not only am I a community relations director, but I also, extend resources beyond that to people who may not think that the community that I'm in specifically at the time, it may not be the right fit for them. But ultimately, I want to help them and provide them with the information they need to make the best decision for them and their loved ones. So that's pretty much what I do in my role as a community relations director.
Excellent, excellent. And that's what it's all about, is helping those families. Like you said, you know, they're a lot of times overwhelmed. And I say this over again, over and over again, but it's the truth. And we
Absolutely.
were talking maybe about a week ago regarding, you know, the family dynamics of caregiving and how, you know, they really really need that guidance. And like you said, your community might not be the best fit for them, but just having someone to talk to, I think it gives them um, encouragement, and it helps them to continue on through that journey, knowing what those next steps are, right? So
Absolutely.
let's talk about senior living and some of the myths when it comes to senior living, because we there's a lot of myths out there about senior
A
living,
lot of
you
myths, a
know,
lot of
and
myths.
you have a wide range of seniors who are transitioning into senior living. You know, you have different levels of care. You know, one senior might not need as high level of care as another senior. So they might just be wanting to downsize. You know, they might just need someone to cook, you know, prepare those meals. They might just be looking for more socialization. So they're needing assisted living, but they're not needing as much care or that one-on-one personal care. So then you get into seniors who do need a little bit more care. They have a chronic illness, right? So let's talk about some of the myths as a whole demographically from, you know, different ranges, age ranges and levels of care. So what are some of those myths?
Yes, and one of the big ones, this is a huge myth, and I know you've heard it as well, Rebekah, but the fact that people think that senior living is an institution or a nursing home. That is a big one that I hear. You know, mom doesn't want to move. Mom thinks it's a nursing home. She's going to be stuck. She can't move anywhere in terms of go anywhere. She's going to be stuck in her room. She's not going to be cared for well. So institution, that is an institution, that is a nursing home, that is a huge one. Have you heard that one a lot too, Rebekah?
I have heard that one. The
Yeah.
first thing they think about when you say senior living is nursing home. I'm not
Yes.
going to no nursing
home.
home. My
Exactly.
mama was in a nursing home, and I'm not going to a nursing home. So that is 100% correct, Tracee.
100. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I tell you, when people see it, so that's the first thing they think a lot of times before they even lay eyes on it, is that, oh no, like you said, I'm not going to a nursing home. You know, my mom was in a nursing home. She died in a nursing home. I'm going to stay at home.
Yes.
But once they lay eyes on it, they kind of see more of that resort feel to it. You know, it's not a nursing home. Oh, wow. Look at this. Look at the rooms. Look at the apartments, you know. So definitely visually seeing a community is a must when you talk about senior living. We can tell you about it all day long on the phone, but once you lay eyes on it, I think a lot of people understand the true meaning of senior living. The way I phrase it is, it's actually seniors living. That's why it's senior living. So, you know, definitely one of the big myths, huge myth. And I hear it all the time. So I stress that one.
Yes.
The second one I have is that they can no longer do hobbies. So they can't do their hobbies anymore. They can't sew, they can't do art class, you know, they can't do Tai Chi any longer, which we know working in senior living, that is the complete opposite, because there are so many things you can do in senior living. The activities are just beyond. You know, you got a calendar full of activities for a whole month that outlines several things you can do in the community for fun. So what are your thoughts on that, Rebekah?
I totally agree. And you all also take them outside the community to do activities. You take them to the senior center community.
Yes.
So, you know, they're not just stuck in, you know, that community as well. So they have activities inside and outside. So that is another big myth. And a lot of times families say, well, my mom and dad doesn't want to do anything. They, you know, they closed off and they keep to themselves. But, you know, I've seen, and I know you've seen it as well, Tracee. A lot of times they get into those communities and you see a total different person.
Different person.
Yes. So it's very big for them to be able to have those activities, because socialization is very important when it comes to a senior and them thriving.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think one of the big things too is definitely when they meet a companion who they can go out on those outings with and socialize with, and, you know, talk politics or talk shopping or whatever the case may be. You know, it makes a huge difference. So definitely you don't want to listen to that one, that you can no longer do hobbies if you are living in senior living. Okay, so do not believe the hype on that. Okay, we're telling you it's otherwise. Another myth I have is that you can lose your independence. So you come into senior living, your independence is gone. Not the case. You know, at the community where I am, you can actually still drive. You know, there are so many things you can still do. You know, you can leave the community if you want to go out with your family overnight. come and go as you please. It is your home. So definitely it is not a situation where you have to give up that independence. That is not what you're doing at all.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
Another myth I have is that it's too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how many times have you heard that one, Rebekah?
I have heard that.
I have heard that.
Time again.
Now, what I will say is that I think a lot of people, and this is just comes from education, don't understand that there are some resources in terms of military. You could be a veteran, you could qualify for VA benefits,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to long-term care insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So there are things and resources out here that can assist. People have gotten very creative with senior living. I will say, since I've been in the industry, I've seen people do different things in terms of payments. For example, I know a lady who has 10 children,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually divide up the cost for their mother's senior living. So, not everybody has 10 kids, but point being, there are some ways that you can look at. You want to see what's going to fit your budget first. Once you determine what's going to fit that budget, and Rebekah can definitely help walk you through that, being with, Agape Senior Solutions, that's what she does. But once you pinpoint what your budget is, now let's look at what resources are out here to help you meet that. If you can't meet it all the way, let's kind of dig a little bit deeper and find out how we can meet it. So don't necessarily listen to the myth that it's too expensive. Any feedback on that one, Rebekah, at all? What are your thoughts there?
That's really good, Tracee. Another thing I would recommend that they look at is the cost of them being at home as opposed to the cost of senior living. So a lot of times when they're at home, they have a mortgage. They have upkeep of the house. Even if they don't have a mortgage, they still have upkeep of the house. They have home insurance. They have a car note. Some of them still have car notes. You know what I'm saying? So look at all those costs that they're accumulating at home for even if you're having to get care at home plus those costs, as opposed to the money that you're paying at assisted living, you end up a lot of times saving more money that way because it's all, the care might not be all inclusive, but everything is all inclusive regarding, room and board, regarding utilities, meals, transportation, landscaping, all of that is included.
All the things, yes.
Yes. So that's another way to look at it as well. And a lot of times families don't look at it like that.
I love that. Absolutely. Pros and cons checklist. Like you said, look at the pros, look at the cons. Mm-hmm. We even have a financial worksheet that we will give to families so that it helps them kind of break down what they're currently paying, what the budget is, and what they would be paying. So sometimes they like to see stuff on paper, visual learners. So you want to be able to lay it out on paper, look at everything, and then kind of make the best decision for you and your family. So definitely don't count it out. I would not say it's too expensive. I just say you got to dig and do some research a little bit and see what resources are out there that can help you.
Most definitely.
Woo, this next one. I won't like the food.
The food is delicious. And I'm going to say, now, in her community, it is really good, girl. You can gain some weight, gain some pounds.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So please don't let it fool you. Mm-hmm. The food, I've heard people say, oh, is it? And that's a question I get asked all the time. Well, how's the food? Is the food good? Does it taste like slop? Is it nursing home food? All kinds of things. And I tell people the food that you eat at home is the same food you receive in senior living, from if it's Italian, soul food, seafood. Senior living communities, they serve it all. I mean, it's like restaurant style dining in most of the communities. And, you're being waited on. It's a great, great experience. So, the food is definitely good. I can vouch for a lot of the food in the communities I've been in. I'm sure, Rebekah, you've tasted a lot of the food in the communities as well. So, we are here to tell you that is definitely a myth. And let me say this, just to kind of add on to that, in terms of the food, if you're questioning the food, ask the community relations director about a lunch tour. Try the food for yourself. You might go in for an initial visit and decide, hey, food is really, really important to my mom or dad. So I want to set a next step and have a lunch tour at the community. Or if you want to call in and you want to make that be your first step, is to have a lunch tour, because food is very, very important to your loved one. Do it. That way you can get a taste, for yourself. You can get a feel and see how the food is at the community.
Most definitely.
Okay. Another myth is that you have to be sick or disabled to be in a senior living community.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that in the beginning.
Yeah. I think that's an interesting one as well, because and that goes into kind of what Rebekah is going to mention a little bit later on about knowing when it's time to make that decision to consider senior living. But you definitely don't have to be sick or disabled. In fact, I say the sooner you get in there, the more you're able to enjoy really the experience that you can have in a community when you're healthy. So, the goal would be to definitely get into a senior living community prior to that, so that you can enjoy, you can thrive, go out shopping, have lunch on a regular basis, and you don't have to worry about any ailments or anything like that. So definitely, in my opinion, I would say that is also a myth. What are your thoughts on that one, Rebekah?
Yes, just like I was saying earlier, as you have different demographics and different needs in the assisted living community, and you might just need to downsize. You want a smaller apartment, and you want all the amenities that you can get from a senior living community, which Tracee shared, the fine dining, being waited on, getting housekeeping, someone to come in and clean your room and wash your clothes, all those amenities that come with assisted living. So you do not have to, necessarily need help with medication management. You can still manage your own meds. You might not necessarily need someone to come in there and monitor you while you're taking a shower or assist you with dressing. You just simply downsizing and enjoying your senior as you age, as you're aging gracefully. So I totally agree with that.
And you might just want to be spoiled. I mean, I'm just saying. Can I get somebody to do my laundry and cook for me and all those things? So I mean, hey, it might just be something as simple as, hey, I'm gonna go ahead, like Rebekah said, and downsize, and I'm gonna move into senior living so I can be spoiled. So you choose. And then one of the other ones that I have is there's no privacy in senior living. What are your thoughts on that one? I thought that one was kind of interesting too.
That's a big myth. You do have privacy. Like I said, you have your own apartment. They do offer different types of settings within the community, but you do have, your own apartment, and it's set up like an apartment. You have your own kitchenette area, you have your own bathroom, you have living room space, you have bedroom space. So you do have your privacy. So when you want to mingle and socialize, you can. And when you feel like, being in your own space, then you can do that as well.
And you also receive a key. Some communities, you have a key to a mailbox. You might have a mailbox in a community. You have a key for that. And then you have a key to your door. So definitely privacy. You're able to lock your door when you want to. Like Rebekah said, if you want to come out and mingle, you're able to do that. So, that is definitely a myth. It's literally like you have your own apartment, but you've got some extra love there in the community with caregivers and things of that nature who can lay eyes on you if they need to, and that's something I think is important. You may not need the care now, you may need it later on, but the fact that the care is already there in place for you, once you need it, then you have to look at it from that standpoint as well. So the only other one I have, Rebekah, is that they'll be stuck in the community, which we kind of touched on that with the getting out and shopping and things of that nature. So, those are some of the myths that I have. that I think are really good. And I'm glad we were able to touch on those and to hopefully shed light for a lot of people about those myths, to show them that, they definitely are myths, and senior living is so much more. So
Most definitely, most definitely. And let's talk a little bit about the different options when it comes to senior living.
okay.
And I always go to what the main things that families should take in consideration when they're making this decision is, what are the care needs for my loved one at this time? What are my goals for them? And then we did talk about financials and things like that, right?
Right.
But main two, let's look at, what are their care needs at this time and what's the goals. And then once you determine that, then you could make your decision regarding what type of senior living setting is appropriate for them at this time. And you have different types of senior living options. You have independent living communities. You want to talk a little bit about independent living communities, Tracee?
Sure. With independent living communities, I mean, it's really just that. It's almost like we said a minute ago about having your own apartment. A lot of times they have their own mailboxes and things of that nature. Several, and it is truly resort style. I've worked in independent living before, and it is a whole different ball game from assisted living. But one thing I know too about independent living is that if you wanted to have care brought in while you're in independent living, you're able to do so. So like home care services or anything of that nature. Let's say you need something a little bit above independent living, but you may not quite be ready for assisted living. There are some options in some communities to bring in home care to assist with some of those minor things that you may need while you're in independent living. But usually independent, I've seen, 55 plus in independent living communities in terms of like the age range. Uh, Fine dining, definitely fine dining. I've been at one community in the Buckhead area that is truly like the Ritz when you talk about fine dining. And any other thing that you want in terms of exercises, Tai Chi, they have full programs as well. So even in assisted living, I will say with independent living and assisted living, there is definitely a difference there in terms of the care that's provided on site for assisted living versus independent living. You have to have it brought in if you want it. But I mean, you can live in assisted living as well, being an independent living resident. You can still drive and things of that nature. Most of the time, they'll bring their cars. So, definitely some differences there, but also some similarities too. So,
Yes. And I would say the main difference, so they know for sure what we're referring to, is they don't need any type of assisted living. So with independent, again, you're downsizing. Some independent communities provide 2 meals a day. Some provide 3 meals a day.
true.
They do have apartment styles. Some of their apartment styles, are bigger. They might have a 2 bedroom with a den and things like that. The other major thing is they do not offer any medication management at all. They don't
Yeah.
offer any assistance with any activities of daily living, grooming, dressing, things like that. So like Tracee said, you would have to hire an outside agency, which would be considered in-home care services, to get that additional care. But with assisted living, they already offer all of that within the community, on site within the community. So those are the main differences. In regards to cost, I would say, independent
That's true.
is more affordable.
Yeah.
And what I found out recently is if you're a veteran, the veteran aid and attendance will pay for a independent living as well.
Oh,
Yes, it will.
okay.
And this is the criteria for it. Either you have an in-home care agency coming in to provide care for you, or that community has to have a call emergency call button or those pendants that they do offer, and
Mhm.
that it has to be able to directly contact 24 on-call staff. So if you were to
Okay.
have a fall or anything like that, they can come and assist you. It
Okay.
cannot directly call 911. You have to have 24-hour staff on site, and that call pendant or that emergency button has to notify that 24-hour on staff.
Mhm.
So that's something that I learned recently this week working with the family, and just wanted to share that. But those are the main
That's good.
differences between independent living and assisted living. So we talked about assisted living as
Right.
another option. And
Mhm.
then the third option I want to discuss tonight is personal care homes. And personal care homes um, is so personal care homes is more of an intimate type setting, and it's more of a setting, home-like setting, right? So a lot of times when you see personal care, when you go to see a personal care home, it is a residential home that was converted into a senior living setting. They are licensed by the state of Georgia. They have to have insurance and be bonded as well. And I say that because there's a lot of myths when it comes to personal care homes as well. That they're unlicensed, they don't provide adequate care, quality care. So I do want to say that there are some really good personal care homes out there, and it's more for those who might need a little bit more hands-on assistance with their activities of daily living. Another difference between personal care homes and assisted living community, their setup is different. So you don't have those individual apartments within the personal care home. You have private rooms, or you have semi-private rooms. Um, and then sometimes you have private bathrooms, and sometimes you don't have private bathrooms. You have
Mhm.
community bathrooms. So it is a smaller like setting for the residential personal care homes. And then you have your bigger personal care homes that have 10 to 30 residents. And usually those, they do have the private bathrooms with the private rooms. They do offer semi-private as well. But that's the difference. And then with cost, it's all inclusive. You don't have your different levels of care. They do assess your loved one and see what level of care they're at. But once they do that assessment and determine what level of care they're at, then that rate is all inclusive. So that's a way, for those individuals who might want to save a little bit of money,
Mhm.
but still need, 24-hour care. So there's different options out there for you.
And
But
I
again, you just want to, oh, but again, you just want to do your due diligence and go out and tour, these communities, and see, what's offered. Talk with the staff. That's another thing that I always have families to look at, and that's one thing I can say about Tracee's community and their chain of communities is that they have longevity of staff. Their care is excellent. And they really do a good job when it comes to senior living. I must say that.
thank you.
And you
Thank
get
you.
what you pay for as well. We talk about that. We want to be honest with you. I'm
We do.
honest. You get what you pay for.
We do.
Okay.
We do talk about that. We do talk about that. And I wanted to say too, just to piggyback off you, Rebekah, is that what people have to realize too, with all of the different options,
Mm-hmm.
you really have to figure out what's going to be the best fit for your loved one. So
Mm-hmm.
you know your loved one better than anybody else does. So in terms of a personal care home, that might be a better fit for mom or dad. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they would that maybe you think they would flourish better in a smaller setting where there
Mm-hmm.
are not as many people. If it's a smaller personal care home with 6 people or whatnot, maybe 10, they might do better in that setting versus a community that has 55 residents in it. So really, you have to know your loved one and know what you think is going to be best for them and where you think they will thrive the most. It
Mm-hmm.
may not be in a 100 bed community. That might be way too much. If they have something like congestive heart failure, maybe they have COPD, cardiopulmonary disease for somebody who may not be clinical. I'm sorry, I use those little acronyms a lot, but that's something that you have to be mindful of, because will mom be able to take the long walk down the hallway to get to the dining room? That might not be the best fit for mom if they're on oxygen or anything like that. So you just really have to be mindful and think specifically about your loved one and what you feel like is going to be the best situation for them.
And that's good that you said that, Tracee, because a lot of times families don't look at that. They look at what they think mom and dad might want and like, and what they might want and like for themselves, as opposed to what is best for mom and dad.
Yes, exactly. And so we have to make sure that we're doing that.
Yes, most definitely. So let's talk a little bit about before we go, not waiting too long. When is the right time to transition mom and dad? What are those I don't want to say symptoms, but what are those signs?
Triggers,
what are those signs and triggers? Yes.
Yeah.
That it's time to transition mom and dad into assisted living.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think about falls sometimes when you see a change in condition on your loved one. Maybe they're not wanting to bathe as much anymore, or they're having difficulty bathing anymore, or let's say their medicines, they're mixing up their medications. The one they're supposed to take at night, they're taking through the day now. They've had several falls or fall. You really have to, and this really gets me going here, this conversation. I'm glad you brought this up, because we really have to be proactive rather than reactive. And I tell my families that all the time. I always give them kudos when they come in and talk to me early. Excuse me. Early. I'm about to choke. Woo, hold on. No water on deck.
No water.
No water. Wait, I got some water. Hold on.
Okay.
I have some water. Hold on, y'all.
Take your time.
This is live TV, so okay. So, but I do feel like that you have to definitely be proactive rather than reactive. Let me jump back there, because a lot of times families will come in and they're in a crisis situation. This is, I gotta move them tomorrow. Mom, excuse me. Mom has, she fell. Now we might have to take her to rehab. She's going to the hospital. Then she got to go to rehab. Let's go ahead and get in front of that. If you're starting to see those signs where, mom is falling, she's getting more confused, go ahead and let's go ahead and take that step and have the conversation. I know the conversation is difficult. It's a very difficult conversation to have, but being proactive rather than reactive is really the way to go, because you want to go ahead, get them, find out what's going to be the best community for mom and dad, so that you can go ahead and put the plan in place, get with someone like a community relations director where we can kind of guide you through the process. We are your senior living guide when it comes to that. In addition to somebody like Rebekah with Agape Senior Solutions, we're going to work together, come together to put a plan in place. We can go ahead and get them placed in a community sooner rather than later. You don't want them to have to skip the process. And that's what I see. Some families will come in and it's too late. And so now you're having to skip the whole senior living piece and go straight into a nursing home because they no longer qualify for senior living. So my word of advice is to be proactive rather than reactive when you start seeing some of those signs.
And what would cause an individual to not qualify or be appropriate for assisted living setting?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me get a swig. Hold on just a second.
Okay.
So in terms of, what would not qualify them for assisted living, if they're no longer feeding themselves, that is going to be something that is going to disqualify them. We cannot, per state regulations, we cannot feed in assisted living. Also, mobility. They have to be able to stand and pivot and at least propel in the wheelchair. Those are things that have to be done, that we can't accept, because one thing you have to think about is if we accept a resident who is bedbound in the event of an emergency, if there's a fire or anything like that, we're going to need assistance with getting them out. So they've got to be able to bear weight so that we can assist them in getting them out in an emergency situation. So definitely those things. Any type of IV needed. We can't do any type of intravenous antibiotics, anything like that. That would be something that would also disqualify them from assisted living. So those are definitely some things that would not qualify them any longer, which, like I said, that's why we want to make sure that proactive piece is in place so that we definitely don't get to that point. But anything that is a skilled nursing requirement, wounds that are stage 3 and 4, we can't accept individuals with wounds that high in assisted living. That becomes, once again, state regulations. We wouldn't be able to do that. So
yes. What about them being able to age in place? How does that work in Georgia?
Yeah, so aging in place, that is definitely going to depend on the community in terms of the regulations. If it's an assisted living, if it's an
I don't mean to
assisted
cut
living
you off.
license.
What does age in place mean?
So aging in place basically means they are able to stay at the community through the end of life. So that's what we mean when we say aging in place. So let's say they come into the community. Let's say it's an independent living, an assisted living, and a memory care. Let's just say it's those 3. Okay. You come in as independent living, you end up transferring to assisted living, and then now you need memory care. So you're in memory care, and then through the end of life, you are able to stay at the community. That's basically what aging in place is. So, and with aging in place, every community is different depending on license and that kind of thing. But that will be the goal because, families, of course, you don't want to have to move your loved one, if they're in independent living. Now you got to move them to assisted living. Now you got to move them to memory care. Or let's say you're moving them into assisted living, and now you got to move them to another building that is memory care. So the goal would be to definitely leave them in one location. And we can do that through hospice as well. Someone is in the community and we can bring in, let's say they started to decline. We're able to bring in hospice into the community so that they are able to definitely age in place as well. That's always bringing in that third party provider is what helps residents age in place with the extra care on top of the care that we provide in the community.
Most definitely. Excellent, excellent. Well, I think we did our job tonight, Tracee.
Besides getting choked. Sorry, y'all. This is live TV, so this is live Facebook Live.
Yeah, so we learned. Well, at least you had some water right there.
I know. I didn't think I had it, but then I saw it out the corner of my
eye. Awesome. So, yes, if you all have any questions, please don't feel free to reach out to myself or Tracee. Tracee, how can they contact you?
Sure. My cell phone number is 678-525-3962. If you have any questions concerning, your family members, in terms of placing them into assisted living memory care, I'm happy to help. Thank you, Rebekah, so much for inviting me on tonight. I have enjoyed myself with you. Felt like we kind of had a little girls' night chat, so that was nice. But we're always here to help, Rebekah and myself. That's what we do on a regular basis. So don't hesitate to reach out if you need us.
Awesome. Well, good night, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening on Let's Talk Senior Care, and I will see you tomorrow evening, same time at 7:30 with Miss Tawana Thomas, and she's going to be discussing veterans' disabilities, being able to qualify for your disability benefits from 20% to 100%. She'll discuss a little bit about how she can assist those veterans with getting those disability benefits, because it's really hard to do that, and having someone advocate for you is very important. So I look forward to hearing what she has to say tomorrow evening. Thank you again, Tracee, for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
All have a blessed night.
Good night.